So just to start off with, where does Integrity System Company fit into the red meat structure in Australia? So ISC, or Integrity Systems Company, is a subsidiary of Meat and Livestock Australia, which is a service provider to the industry. Now, MLA and ISC both provide industry services. Now, just the diagram that's there on your screen at the moment, the organisations in the top row, they're focused on policy and strategy. So they typically advocate or represent producers, and they represent producers to the key decision makers that make decisions on behalf of industry, particularly around how that levy is spent. Now, all these organisations on the slide here, they're all separate organisations with very discrete roles, but all these organisations work together to support the industry and build that future industry prosperity. So Meat and Livestock Australia is responsible for research, development and adoption and marketing activities on behalf of the red meat industry. We do that by collaborating with the Australian government and the wider red meat industry, and we invest in initiatives that contribute to producer profitability, sustainability or global competitiveness. And the way that that is done is through investing those levies, which are paid every time animals are transacted or moved along the value chain. Those levies are then matched by Australian government funds up to a certain cap, and they're then invested in either R&D or marketing activities under the direction or guidance of those industry representative bodies that I mentioned just a moment ago. So Integrity Systems Company, on the other hand, so as I said, a subsidiary of Meat and Livestock Australia, we manage and deliver Australia's red meat integrity system. Now, it's this system that underpins consumer confidence in on-farm production of Australian red meat. The red meat integrity system ensures that Australian red meat is safe to eat and fully traceable. It provides on-farm assurance, animal identification and lifetime traceability, and it underpins the livestock selling system, therefore giving confidence to buyers, retailers and consumers. So the red meat integrity system, as I said, it underpins consumer confidence in on-farm production of Australian red meat. But just a little bit of context as to why it's really important that we have this integrity system. The Australian red meat industry is a pretty serious business now. It's a $28 billion industry. It employs 400,000 people across 80,000 businesses and delivers products to 100 global markets. So the red meat integrity system is really important to that livestock industry, and it does that through an on-farm assurance component, and that is through the Livestock Production Assurance Program. And the other element which makes up the integrity system is identification and traceability of livestock, and that's managed through the National Livestock Identification System. So the integrity system, together, those two programs support our domestic and international markets, and it's because of this that our red meat from Australia is trusted and highly sought after. Now, the other thing to note, of course, is that there are many, many producers and many properties that make up the red meat integrity system. But it's regardless of your, I guess, your size or the number of animals and livestock you manage, the integrity system really is about delivering one measure of quality through one integrity system. And the key message there is that we all have a role to play to stand by what we sell. So just as a quick refresher, there are two programs which work together to underpin our industry's food safety and traceability on farm. So Livestock Production Assurance, or LPA, that's all about on-farm assurance, and that covers the on-farm management of food safety, animal welfare and biosecurity risks. It's the tick of assurance for your product from producer through to consumer, and it demonstrates the professionalism of the industry and underpins market access for Australian red meat. The other program is the National Livestock Identification System, or NLIS, and it's all about identification and traceability. It tracks the location of every animal throughout its life. Now, NLIS is mandatory for producers, and it's endorsed by major producer, feedlot, agent, sale yard and processor bodies. And it's underpinned by state and territory legislation and enhances Australia's ability to track livestock during disease and food safety incidents. Now, there's three other elements to the red meat integrity system. that I guess bring the whole system together. And the first of those is the property identification code, which is required for all livestock producing properties, and it's also required for registration with both LPA and NLIS. And PICs are managed independently by state and territory departments of agriculture, and their incorporation into LPA and NLIS is the only way that traceability and food safety can be managed at a national level. And the other two elements to the system, which are really important and which of course is the focus for tonight's webinar, the first of that is the LPA National Vendor Deck, and that's linking that on-farm assurance and traceability component for livestock as they move through the value chain. And then the final bit is around record keeping and keeping accurate records for both LPA and NLIS, and they underpin food safety and traceability and provide that level of customer assurance through the system. So just very quickly, we'll touch on the couple of the key elements being LPA and NLIS and what it actually means for you as a producer on farm, and then we'll get stuck into the record keeping. So LPA, or Livestock Production Assurance, it means that producers, what you need to do is you need to keep your online LPA account details up to date. You need to maintain your LPA accreditation, and this means that you need to complete the LPA learning and assessment, remain accredited and complete the assessment, which is online, or you can do it offline. It's a series of multiple choice questions which you need to answer correctly to receive that accreditation. Producers need to renew their accreditation every 3 years to ensure that your knowledge of the program remains current. And just to note that accreditation does give you more options for marketing your livestock and means that you can access those LPA national vendor decks for all livestock movements between PICs. If you're part of the LPA program, you commit to managing your livestock and property in line with 7 LPA requirements, and we'll go through those in some detail as we go through the webinar, but basically they are property risk assessment, safe and responsible animal treatments, stock foods, fodder crops, grain and pasture treatments, preparation for dispatch, livestock transactions and movements, biosecurity and animal welfare. Some other things that you need to do as part of the LPA program is to maintain thorough records as evidence of livestock history and on-farm practices, and also be prepared to undergo an audit if requested. Now, LPA is an audited accreditation program, so as a producer, you agree to complete an audit when asked, and this is what provides that accountability from paddock to plate. So NLIS, on the other hand, that's the identification and traceability element to the red meat integrity system. What do you need to do as a producer? Well, firstly, similar to LPA, you need to keep your NLIS online account details up to date. You need to order and use NLIS tags as identifiers for every animal on your PIC. You need to record movements of livestock in the NLIS database, and the person receiving the livestock is responsible for completing the transfer. Now, the time frames for property to property transfers do vary, so it's important that you're up to date with the state requirements for that. Producers need to regularly check their records on the NLIS database to ensure that transfers have been completed. And it's also recommended that you do a PIC reconciliation every year to ensure that the NLIS database is an accurate record of NLIS devices and livestock on your property. And as I said before, the element that brings the LPA and NLIS together is through the National Vendor Declaration. So the National Vendor Declaration, what do you need to do? You need to maintain your LPA accreditation to continue to access LPA NVDs. And just to note that NVDs are a legal document, and when ticking boxes on an LPA NVD, your declarations need to be backed up by accurate farm records. You need to ensure that your NVDs are clear, complete and correct, and you need to file and store your completed or received NVDs and check that they have a corresponding NLIS transfer to or from your PIC as part of those records. So we've just given a quick refresher about the different elements that make up the red meat integrity system. For the remainder of the webinar, what we're going to do is go into some more detail around those individual LPA requirements and the record keeping that goes with those, because good records and systems are the foundation of the integrity system.